Hello, Geneva, and welcome to Officially Speaking. I'm your host, Kevin Starr. Each month, we sit down with one of our local elected officials or appointed board members to get the latest with your city government. Today, we're joined by Plan Commission Chairman Scott Stocking. Scott, thanks for being here.
Glad to be here.
Well, let's start off the show with people that might not be familiar with the Plan Commission. Can you explain what your role is in our government, and how long have you been volunteering with this board?
We're a volunteer, or I've been on the commission for about 10 years. Our role is to be advisory to the city council for new development that occurs in the city. That's our primary role, and to make recommendations for the comprehensive plan and for rezoning are our primary duties. So we basically give guidance to city council on new development proposals.
And when a proposal comes in, can you detail the process from when it comes into city staff all the way to making a recommendation to the city council?
Yeah, staff does a very good job at taking the development proposals in from the development community and walking through all the requirements for the city, coming up with making sure it meets all of our codes and standards and stuff. So by the time it gets to us, it's been pretty well vetted in terms of all the things that are needed to be done. Sometimes there's issues that are still outstanding where, for whatever reason, developers want to do something a little bit slightly different than what's called for. So those are the kinds of things we sort out. So typically they'll come for us, they'll state their case, we'll hear from the public, and then we try to sort out and come up with the best decision for the development going forward. And then it goes to council for final decision. So we always tell folks, it's like, this isn't the end of this story. You know, we're basically purely making an advisory recommendation to city council, and then council makes the final decision.
And over the last year, it seems like attendance at some of our Plan Commission meetings has really grown at times. People taking a great interest in what's going on. Is there anything you can attribute that to in particular?
Well, I think in general, since the 10 years I've been on the commission, I think there's always been a pretty good level of interest throughout the community in terms of new development proposals. But obviously, we've had some pretty high-profile cases recently where especially in the downtown area where there's a high degree of interest. You know, we have such a great downtown. People are very conscious of that and want to keep it going. So there was a lot of interest in that development proposal that was going through council, and then some other larger residential projects that have come in at maybe a little bit higher density than has been in the case in the past, and that obviously creates a lot of interest in the community. So that's probably the main reason why we've had a lot of it. And you know, it's part of the process that we go through. I think there's some days where we have, you know, like last night, we really didn't have a whole lot going on because it was a relatively straightforward proposal, and then we have very large complex ones that would take months to review and make a recommendation.
People have an opportunity to present their testimony at public hearings. Are there any recommendations that you can give residents on how they can present this information to the Plan Commission?
Yeah, certainly. I think what I find for me personally, I think a number of commissioners as well, is if the individual would send their comments in written format prior to the meeting, they get it included in the commissioner's packet. Believe me, we read everything that comes into our packet. So if you submit a letter or a comment of something that's in written format, we're definitely going to read it and take that into advisement, and then come in during the meeting itself and follow up on it. And I think that has the biggest impact overall in terms of we've already familiar with your argument, and you come in and state your case, and we kind of talk about it through that process. So I think that has the biggest single way of getting to the commissioners. We do read everything that we get. I mean, there's some of the packets are pretty large, but we do definitely read everything that comes in. Sometimes it's also good if you haven't got enough lead time where you can't write written comments in and get it in advance for the commission's packet. If it's presented during the meeting, we'll definitely read it at that time.
So after you go through a public hearing, you hear all the facts, and you're about ready to make a recommendation. What goes into determining making that recommendation to the City Council? Yeah,
that's the process that's probably the most interesting on the commission side. So typically how it goes is we won't close the public hearing unless commissioners are comfortable that everything's been put on the record. So if there's some outstanding issues that are still out there from hearing all the testimony and hearing from the development community and staff as well. So there's those three elements in there. And if we're still not certain we've got all the information that we'll need, we won't close the public hearing because we still want to hear input from that. So we'll go through that process, and hopefully it'll be a next meeting where we'll get the additional information to go in, and then we'll close the hearing. At that point, then the commission feels everything is in the record in order to make a decision. And then the decision-making process is basically we go what's on the record, what was talked about at that time, and sort it out. And some of them are pretty tough calls. I mean, the community usually has very, very good points. Then there's the overall needs for the community and how we see things through the planning and zoning process. So it's weighing those options and trying to come up with the best alternative. Usually we'll try to sort that out during the meetings and see if there's common ground. We spend a lot of time in the public hearings trying to figure out where that common ground might be in the hearings, but at some point we have to close the hearing and then render a decision on it.
So if a resident is interested to know what's coming up next on the Plan Commission, is there a way they can get notified about the agenda?
Yeah, I think the best, the website for Geneva is outstanding. I mean, everything is in there in a record in that. Obviously keeping an eye on the news. I think the local media covers new cases pretty well, and definitely what's going on that. I think the city also is starting to take a little more aggressive proposal on that and expanding the notification area, like doubling its size and doing it earlier so that we get more input. I think some comments come in recently from the public that they're not getting notification of these things and stuff, so we're trying to be proactive and getting the word out. But probably the best way is just put in an email notification that there's planning commission agenda's been posted and stuff like that, and then you can go in and check out the agenda.
And just kind of a recent development is now the Plan Commission meetings are held on TV, so people can watch from the convenience of their home. So for those that aren't familiar when your meetings are held, can you tell us when they're held right here in council chambers? Yeah,
it's usually the second and fourth Thursdays of the month at 7 p.m. is usually when we meet. The most often is the second Thursday is we usually meet, and then if on a need basis we could do the fourth Thursday. And there's some months we don't meet because there hasn't been something submitted and ready to review. So
that is all the time we have for Officially Speaking. I'd like to thank Scott for taking his time and insight into the Plan Commission. We also thank you for watching. We'll be tuning in next month to get the official word from your city government.